So I don't know how many of you watched the 5+ hour annual meeting for Berkshire Hathaway, but I did, and it was pretty f***ing spectacular. So over the weekend, Warren Buffett hosted his annual meeting for Berkshire Hathaway. And it was full of all of the normal financial gobbledygook, and it was full of a lot of questions from CNBC contributors, so on and so forth. But there was one key takeaway that I think not a lot of people are covering, and I don't think a lot of people are going to take this almost 6 hours to watch through the entire event. And so I thought I'd condense it for you. So the best portion to me of this entire annual event was Warren Buffett's opening speech. Warren Buffett took the approach of a little bit of a history lesson for the United States and for everyone who's now saying that there's going to be a giant depression and we're going to be worse than 2008 and everything's over and this is the end of the world. What he basically started with was the Civil War. What he boiled it down to was the Civil War's giant economic impact. And where it truly was impacted is that 6% of the working age males of the day were actually killed off during the war. That would be the equivalent today of nearly 4 million people being killed off in the United States. And I think his point here is pretty salient. He is trying to say we lived through a time where a large portion of our population was killed off. And I think he's trying to say to people, hey, listen, it's okay what we're dealing with right now. We will see some death and it's terrible and it shouldn't be happening, but I think ultimately we will survive past it. The second topic Buffett touches on is the 1929 Great Depression. So his main point here is he talks about the percentage changes in the stock market over time. So initially in 1929, the stock market fell off a bit and everybody panicked. But then just after that, for the next about a year or two, the stock market saw a 20% increase. But then by 1932, the stock market had fallen apart again, and that was where we get the actual Great Depression. Buffett is giving a little bit of credence here to the depression hawks who are just out for saying, this is the end, the world is over, we're never gonna see anything like this market again, and it's gonna be worse than 2008. But I think what he does say is we were able to get past that point and we moved forward, and then we actually started to worry about what was the next depression. And from that point forward, every single crisis that we had was the next Great Depression in everyone's mind. And I think he's trying to say, we should all relax a little bit and we shouldn't think that this is the next Great Depression because there are safeguards in place now. But he said be wary, I think, of the fact that this market could pull back again. So Buffett goes on to talk about the 1950s and the 1960s and some people that impacted the economy and some thought leaders of the time and how they perceived what was going on. But I think the most important section of all is when Warren Buffett starts asking questions to the audience. So he asks one major question that I've heard him ask before, but that I think is more important now than ever. He asks, if you could choose what year you were born in, but you couldn't pick your race, your sex, or what you were good at, what year would you pick? I'll give you a second so that you can kind of decide for yourself what year you would pick. But his point is that it's the year 2020. 2020 is the greatest year of all time to be alive. And he talks about how the United States is the greatest country on earth. Over the last 20 years, you could have made massive returns in the stock market. And those massive returns were really only attributed to one thing. The fact that if you bet on the United States, you're gonna win. We're the best for a reason, and throughout history, we've demonstrated that. We've demonstrated that through every single crisis that we've been faced with, we overcame it and we moved on. And now we're more successful than we've ever been.
Nothing can stop America when you get right down to it. And it's been true all along. It may have been interrupted with the scariest of scenarios when you had a war with one group of states fighting another group of states. And it may have been tested again in the Great Depression. And it may be tested now to some degree. But in the end, the answer is never bet against America.
I think the one key takeaway from this is that Buffett was trying to say to us, it's gonna be okay. No matter what happens with the stock market, no matter what happens with the crisis, everything will eventually work out. And so long as you're interested in making money, if you invest in America, you're going to succeed and you're going to win. Buffett went on to talk about some more financial items. He talked about how Berkshire Hathaway was hit hard in Q1 as expected, but Berkshire ultimately is pretty stable of company. In the Q&A section, actually, he was discussing how he sold a lot of airline stocks recently, and their stake in those companies is very minimal at this point, if not completely eliminated. He wouldn't completely confirm that, but that's the assumption. As well as Buffett addressed the fact that he has a humongous cash position, and a lot of people right now are asking the question, why is Buffett holding such a large cash position, and what is the implication for the regular trader? So the way that he describes it is, this is not his worst case scenario cash position. So apparently he does not think that it's going to be worse than 08 or, the Great Depression that everybody's expecting. He kind of says that, he's holding a lot of cash right now, but it's potentially to be used soon. So if you guys are interested, I will leave a link to the entirety of the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. It's a lot to sit through, I get it, but the Q&A section was particularly enlightening for me, and I honestly think that this is a speech that will go down in history. I think this speech that he gave, should it get the media recognition that I think it deserves, would go down in the history books as the speech that defined where we're currently at in our position. I think it's kind of interesting that we aren't hearing that from other politicians, we aren't hearing that from thought leaders of the time, but we're hearing that from one of the richest men in the world right now. So I just think that point is kind of salient. So thank you for watching. And I want you to leave down below what you thought about the meeting. I know a lot of people are saying that all of Warren Buffett's thoughts are that the depression is coming and there's nothing we can do about it and everyone's freaking out, but I want to know your personal thoughts. And if you could leave a like and subscribe, that would help out tremendously. And thank you guys for watching.